Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Craig from Onefixx, and welcome along to today's webinar. Today's topic is all about marketing with your email signature without needing to touch Outlook or whatever email client you're using. So without further ado, let's have a look and talk about some housekeeping first off. So if you haven't joined one of our webinars before, I welcome questions that you'll hopefully on your screen. You'll see you have a chat box on the right hand side. Just outside there, you can type in any questions you have. Typically, I'll address those at the end because I'm not always looking at that during the webinar. So any questions you've got, any comments, please pop them in the chat and I will address those once we get to that stage. I expect today we'll be taking around about 30 minutes. It should be reasonably quick today. I'm going to talk you through a little bit about email signatures, how you can use them to improve your marketing, and then I'm going to give you a really quick live demo of the platform that we recommend, something called Exclaimer, which is an online signature tool to basically make your life a lot easier with signatures. If you need to drop out at any point, feel free to do so. You'll find you will receive a replay link that will come through to you on email. It's approximately 24 hours after the start of the webinar, so around about lunchtime tomorrow, you'll receive a link where you can replay this again at any time. We also typically upload these up onto YouTube on our YouTube channel, where you can subscribe there and keep track of all the different content that we put together. So for those who are on the webinar today who don't know about Onefixx, we are an IT support company providing fully managed IT services for businesses. The typical clients that we support range in size from, in fact, the smallest is a one-man band. The biggest we've got is around about 200 staff. But the average sweet spot for us is around about 20 or 30 staff. We look after normally the entirety of the IT infrastructure, the help desk, supplying of equipment, all that kind of stuff. But for the bigger clients, we can also work with internal teams to provide extra support and help for those people that don't have that in-house. And we save our clients time, money, and stress by reducing unexpected downtime, managing their IT budgets, and keeping them secure. Again, if you're new to this, you may not know me. So my name is Craig Atkins. I am the Managing Director of Onefixx Limited. I am on Twitter, so if you're a Twitter user, follow me at Onefixx, no hyphen. Also, LinkedIn, please do join up and connect with me on LinkedIn. I do put up quite a lot of kind of IT content, information, tips, troubleshooting information, all that kind of stuff. So definitely worth a follow on social media if you're on the social platforms. Okay, so let's get into the meat of our presentation today. So email signatures. First off, I think email signatures, they are really underused. So there's been a massive focus in the last few years from anybody in marketing all around social media. Big push, get everything on social, and emails have kind of been slightly ignored. I think, according to some stats that we pulled together, email use is obviously still on the rise. I mean, corporate-wise, the clients that we support, we've seen a vast kind of uptick in email over the last 2 or 3 years in terms of the amount sent and received by companies. These stats are a couple of years old now, but back in 2008, the average office worker was receiving 121 email messages a day, or they say read them. I don't know whether they read all of them, but they've received 121, and sent on average about 40 emails a day. So when you think about that, that's actually 40 chances per day to get a targeted message to prospects or clients or whoever you're sending your emails to. Now, obviously, emails are a little bit blanket, so they do go out to lots and lots of different people. But typically, emails are a fantastic way to kind of put a message in to the people that you're messaging. And obviously, if you're in an email communication with somebody, you're actually already engaged, so you have a point of touch. So it's kind of like a warmer contact point than social media. So I think it's a real thing that people should be taking advantage of, and a lot of people aren't. So one of the issues with email signatures is that many of them are just plain boring. So here is an example, obviously an anonymized, completely nonsense example pulled from online, but this is a very kind of common thing that we see for email signatures. Is literally someone's name, job title, the company, all of the contact information, some email addresses and web links, completely uninspiring. And the thing is, on a regular basis, it kind of becomes invisible. So if you're corresponding with that person, it doesn't pop. You're not going to read that. You're not going to see any kind of message, even if they, somewhere on this, if they put in a real good kind of marketing message in there that said, we're running a fantastic event, click here to get some information, you probably wouldn't see it because you're so used to just seeing the plain text. You can go slightly better. Some of these, this is again something we see quite commonly. This is more popular when you look at kind of some of the American platforms, and obviously we have some American suppliers and we correspond with them, and having the photo on the email is a slightly more common thing in the States, but it adds a nice personal touch. I think it's quite a nice thing actually. So my comments on this one really is a nice headshot. It's very corporate, but that might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. It depends what your brand and your message is. And it does have social media links, which is good. So this is probably I don't know, 6 out of 10. There's really nothing else there other than that. It's kind of like a business card, but it's not bad. I'm going to show you now the bad example. This is something that I received yesterday, I think, personally to my email. I've snipped this as a full screen view. So this is the full screen of the email. This is the person's signature. So we've got their name, their position, a bit of information, a bit of the standard contact stuff, and then just images. I mean, the signature goes off the page. I couldn't capture it all on one page. It's that long. And this is just the other way. This is just not good at all, because again, it's just too long. It's, I'm not going to look at that. In fact, it kind of looks like spam. So you can do too much of a good thing. So I wanted to show you what I think good looks like. And it really looks typically compact. So compact and with a message. So and this is, I guess, some personal preference, but the real estate on a device is kind of quite precious, especially in a long email thread. So what you find is if you have a signature that's really, really long, it just gets lost. So keeping it kind of short and compact really helps. So this is a good example. So we've got a logo, EPS, consistent branding there. We've got the person's details and information, some social media links on the right-hand side. We've then got a banner. So this is the piece of marketing that they've slotted in here. And this is, again, gives us some information. They're obviously running a show, call to action there, click on that. And then underneath it, you might not be able to see it because it's grey on white. It's not very clear on this screen. There is a disclaimer there as well. Now, again, email disclaimers, again, by law, corporate communications, you're supposed to include company number, all that kind of stuff. So again, getting all of that into one email of kind of signature, making it look good, that's a challenge. And these challenges, this is the typical things we come across, certainly from an IT perspective when we're trying to help clients manage these problems. It's really hard if you're not using any kind of tooling to get a consistent signature across your users. So I have an example that springs to mind where we were working with a client where they'd rebranded essentially. They had a new logo. They had, I think at the time, about 40 or 45 staff. And it's not an exaggeration to say it probably took them a month to get everything in line with all the different staff, because they would put the signature together. And if you've ever tried to do a signature in Outlook with graphics, it's you kind of have to edit it in the Word signature editor, or you have to do it in Outlook, and it's really small. It's really difficult to get it kind of just right. It never looks quite right initially when you're designing it. And you have to send that around to everybody, and then everybody has to put that in Outlook, and they have to then change the name that you've put in there to their name and their contact details, and it's just a mess. And so what you find is this particular client ended up with some people using new branding, some people with old branding, some people with the wrong messaging on the signature, and this was just to get the branding right. There was no marketing here, so that was a huge challenge. Took a lot of time and was painful. So if you factor into that, if you're then wanting to do some kind of marketing message and put something into the signature, how complicated is that going to be when you're trying to get the users to do this? Or if you have an IT team, and how much time are you going to waste for the team to have to go and do this? Another issue here is that outdated messaging actually looks worse than having no messaging at all. So again, this is something kind of a sin that I've seen before, is that I've received emails from people with information, a link on there, a call to action, big event, really nice picture, lots of information for something that happened 3 weeks ago. And it just looks really, really poor. It looks really bad. And again, if you're expecting your end users to have to manage that and to sort of turn those things on and off or edit their signatures, there's a really good chance that that's going to happen. Lastly, and this is potentially, actually, this is probably the biggest challenge in terms of getting things consistent, is more and more of us are using our mobile devices when we're out and about. So more of us are sending emails via our iPhones, our Android devices, using Mac Mail or using whatever platform we're using. And it's really, really difficult from a business and a corporate perspective to get the branding correct on all those devices. So, your iPhone will support a certain way of doing a signature. Your Outlook app, if you're using that for email, will support a different way of doing a signature. So it's a huge, huge headache. And again, if users are using kind of personal devices, you're really going to struggle to get them to consistently enforce any kind of signature style there. So what we then typically see is, obviously, we get emails from people and it will say sent from my iPhone or sent from Outlook on my Android or whatever it says. And that's fine, but it may or may not be what you want. It certainly doesn't sort of tie up with the corporate branding and the message. So what we really need is something that makes it easy. We need something to help us with ease of use. Because one of the things that is a real problem is time. Time is money, as we all know. Now, we've worked this out as an average from looking at some of our ticket stats and anecdotally talking to kind of my technicians in the team and asking them how long do you think this really takes? And we've timed some things. We worked out on average it takes about 10 minutes for a user to change their signature on their devices. And that's kind of based on someone changing it on Outlook and changing it on their phone for a job title change or similar. So if you've got 50 users, that's 500 minutes, which for those who want to do the maths is 8 hours and 20 minutes of time. So that's a lot of time just to get the signatures changed. And that's probably, I would say, best case scenario, depending on what you're changing. So if you're looking to then start changing this messaging and to put some marketing into the signatures and get people to do that, then that's just changing it once a month. That adds up to 100 hours a year of, essentially, I would say, wasted productivity. You're going to get the output at the end of it, but it's a lot of time spent just fiddling the signatures. So we need a solution, and this is why we essentially went looking for something that would work for the customers that we deal with. So we decided the ideal solution would be something that's centralized. So a centralized email signature manager that's going to make sure that all of the signatures are consistent on your devices. You want something really that's easy to use without having to have graphic design skills, because not everybody has access to a design team. But likewise, if you have got a marketing department or you use some outsourced marketing teams, again, you want a platform where you can drop that content in and make it look pretty, because that's the point. You have pretty content, you want to be able to show it. And we also thought it was really important to have a platform where you can actually schedule things. So, for example, a great use of scheduling signature timings is Christmas signatures. You don't want them showing after Christmas. You want them showing a period before Christmas. You probably want to design it in advance with your Christmas opening hours. That's where scheduling is the perfect tool for the job. So the solution that we settled on internally, that we've played around with, is a product called Exclaimer. Now, Exclaimer is a cloud-based signature management tool, and I think it's very reasonably priced. It starts from 97p a user a month. I think the minimum plan is 10 users. I can't drop the pricing calculator down below that. If you've got less than 10 users and you want to have a look, drop me a line and I'll speak to them and find out. It may well be that it's the same price, or it may be a little bit more, but essentially it starts at 97p and that price falls down as you go above, I believe, 100 users is the next break point, and as you go up to bigger and bigger for bigger enterprise, the price really comes down. But even at 97p a user a month, that's fantastic value for money, in my opinion. If you're spending, each user spending 10 minutes a month and you're going to be fiddling around, it's, to me, a no-brainer. So what I'm going to do, without further ado, is I want to jump in and give you a really quick demo of just what it looks like, because it's really easy to talk about these things. It's much easier if I can show you kind of how you'd go about designing a signature on Exclaimer, just so you get a feel for what you can do in the back end. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will come up. Bear with me. Okay, so this is the Exclaimer backend console, essentially. So I've already logged in. I've logged into Onefixx's account, so this is our signatures. And what we can do, we've got some folders here. Now, one of the things to bear in mind with signatures is that with the Exclaimer, you can have lots of people as admins of this platform, and you can create folders of signatures, and you can create loads of kind of complex rules as to how these signatures apply. We have a really basic use case for ourselves. We just use it to apply the signature that we have, and we sometimes put promotional messages on, but we change what's on there. But actually, for us, it's about consistency of branding. So what we've got in here, if I open up this basic signature folder, is we have a bunch of different bits and pieces. So this one here, which you can probably just about see, that's our standard signature. So this applies to all of our emails that we send. At the moment, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've got a little NHS Stay at Home, Protect the NHS, Save Lives, which goes on underneath this signature. This is an old event banner that we had for an event that we were running previously. I haven't deleted it out yet, but we have things that come in here and come out again. And this is a specific signature here for essentially replies. So you can have different signatures that apply for different types of messages. Now, I'm going to quickly show you just the rules behind this very quickly, and then I'm going to show you how the signature builder works for building a signature. So on the signature rules, this main signature that we've got, first thing is it applies what's called server side. So with Exclaimer, all of the signatures, unless you choose to do so, and you probably don't want to do so, they apply at server side. So what that means is when I am generating a new email, and in fact, let me bring a new email up from my Outlook very quickly. Here we go. Just put that over. So when I make a new email, I don't put a signature on at all. So I don't go on like you used to do. I don't go insert signature. I just literally type my email. So I literally sign it off, thanks at the bottom, or best regards, or whatever, and just blank, nothing, which seems a bit weird and counterintuitive initially. But that is because on the server side, when the mail goes out through the server, so it goes out to your end user, the signature is then applied on the server. So, and then we have a little rule here that basically says to not apply the signature if the message already contains our company registration number, because that means actually we've already got that big signature on there. So we don't want to splat it in again. I don't like having big signatures on the replies. I like to have a small signature on the reply. So which is, this basically makes sure that we don't reapply the big signature on any replies that go out. Now the beauty of this applying server side basically means that when I send an email from my Android device, for example, again, I send it on Android Mail, I don't put a signature on the bottom, I press send, and my signature gets applied. Exactly the same. So it's very consistent. So actually, if I was to send you an email, from my phone, you wouldn't know that I was sending it to you from my phone. It looks exactly the same as if I send it from my desktop. So you have this basic rule here, and you can change to apply a certain signature. For example, if the subject contains something, or if the again, and you can choose whether you continue processing signatures. So we continue processing signatures, which means once we've applied this one, then if the rules for this one apply, which they apply for everybody, then this gets applied. So you can start to add other signatures in. So you can actually, under the senders and recipients, you can make signatures that are for specific senders. So we have this one for everybody. So everybody's email gets the NHS banner on there. But if you had a sales team, for example, then you could have a group, and this would be a group within Office 365. Your IT people can help with that, but you'd have a group and you can apply the signature to the group. So you can start to build up different signatures or folders of signatures that apply different things to different people. Now, what does tend to happen is you end up with, when you have quite a lot of things there, the rules can get a bit complicated. So you have a rule tester. So you can do an example. So from a sender, let me do Craig.Atkins@onefixx.com. I'm going to send this to bob@bob.com. There we go. And I'm going to say test email. And we can just do an example email here. Hi, Bob, test. And that's what I would send in Outlook. So if I press test now, it will give me an example of what's going to apply to my email as a signature. There we go. So we're going to get my big signature here and my stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. Now, what this does do is, and I can show you on the designer in a second, is all of the details in the signature. So in fact, let me bring it back up again. These details here are all auto-populated. So these are generated or pulled out from your, in this instance, Office 365. So what this also means, this is a really big plus, is when you add a new user to your company, you add them in Office 365 and you make sure you filled in their job details, their title, their description, all that kind of stuff. And all of this signature is pre-built. So you don't have to do any signature setup at all. The minute they send a new email through the platform, it's automatically going to put their name in, their job title, their direct dial number if they have one, whatever other information you've built the signature with, it's going to build that for you. Now I'll give you a real example of this in a second. Let me come back out to the signatures. I will, in fact, let me show you Christmas as well, because this is a good example when we're saying about time-based signatures. So this was our 2019 Christmas signature. You can probably just about see there were some opening hours down there, and there's a Christmas bauble. It's something a bit festive. If I go down here, we have a date and time trigger for this signature, and you'll see that here this signature was applying from, essentially the 10th of December, and it was ending on the 1st of January. So we were just applying the signature during that date range. So this is where you can start to get really creative when you're running kind of events, or you've got time-based marketing material. You can build up a whole library of signatures, have them applying at different times. So you could build up the next 3 months worth of, signature information. And in fact, I just thought I should be doing this for my webinar. So I'm going to go away after this. And I'm going to put one together for the upcoming webinars, because we run one once a week. So I've missed a trick, but there you go. I've just now realized. That's exactly the sort of thing you can do with the time-based stuff. So you can pre-plan all this stuff and not have to come back to it again. Now, if I go to create a new signature, this is what you would see when you're starting to build a signature. There are some pre-built designs. They may not look like the most exciting things in the world, but they are pre-built designs. So they have some styles they're called business cards. So that's one particular layout, logo, some information. In fact, this is the one that we've essentially based ours off of, and we've added some more to it. We've got this one here. We've got another one. So there's a few different layouts of styles here of signatures that are pre-built in. And then they break them down. So they have a decorative, this one here. So let's take, let's go with this one, for example. We'll start a new signature from this example. So this is now the signature editor. And what we can do here is, you can see we have all these different boxes, and it's got, there's a little slogan there. There's a logo that we could change. But essentially, there's these things with the squiggly brackets. So display name, job title, company name, email, telephone, fax. These are all the kind of what they call lookup fields. So these are all the things that pre-populate depending on who you pick. So you can see over here, this is giving us an example of what the signature is going to look like on an email using this particular email address, which is the one that we use for a login, support queue. So we don't actually have much information against support queue, but let me change this and I'll show you if we choose a different user. Let's go with Ben Somner. Now we've chosen Ben Somner. You can see his name's come in. We've got IT Help Desk Apprentice. His job titles come in. His email address, phone number, we all use the same. Web address we don't store in the system. So actually, because we wouldn't have a changing web address on the signature, we actually just type that in. So we would edit the signature to change that. And we've got something missing. So we actually haven't got company name and address details in our system for Ben, because again, on our signature, we've only worked from one office. So our signature has all this pre-filled. We don't pull it out live. But if you had staff in multiple offices, global staff, again, as long as you've got the information in Office 365, this will all pull out and populate. We might have somebody with that information. Mine might actually have it. So let's have a look. No, it doesn't. Okay, so I say we don't really use that. I think the support queue one possibly did. Yeah, so we have got that information in against one of our users. So that gives you an example that as you change the users, that information changes. If you then wanted to hard code something, so that's the good example, the web address there. That is actually hard coded. It's not pulling it from anywhere. You just click on it and you can just change what's there. So you type in, it's just literally like an editor. So onefixx.com. Click out again. There we go. Now, you can have all sorts of fancy rules around this. One of the things that we do have with our signature is some rules around whether the commas go in certain places if you don't have a particular thing or job title or whatever, so it won't put a comma on a job title afterwards. So by clicking on these boxes and tables, you can start to do rules around visibility. So you see here visibility. I'm not sure how clear this is, but You can say it's visible, always visible, or it's visible when, for example, the display name is not empty, or the telephone number is not empty, or the city is not empty. So it gives you an idea. You can kind of start to really customize this. And if you've got social media logos, they give you some pre-built things like social media strips. So let's say we want to put that in. We're going to drop it in under the logo. And we'll leave those for a second. That's fine. That's just going to pre-fill some Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Let's press OK. There we go. Now we've got those in underneath the logo. So you can see without having to understand how to program anything, you've got those now dropped in. You can probably centralize them as well because they're currently on the left. So if we horizontal center, then there we go. Now they've centered up under the logo. So you can see how this is kind of really easy just to put something together. Again, legal disclaimers, registered office information. You want to put that in the footer of the signature, for example. You could drop it down at the bottom there. There we go. So it gives you some pre-filled. So there we go. We've got our registered office now on the signature as a disclaimer, or we can put legal compliance disclaimers in, all that kind of stuff. Images, they've got pre-built icons for different things, different table shapes. So even just using this tool, you can get reasonably creative with what you want to pull together. And as you drop the fields in, again, you can pull whether they have a kind of a logo on them, what type of information they've got. So when you do the drop downs, it will show you what's in there. So you've got things like city, company name, display name. So you can start to build all this stuff up. And if you've got graphics, let me just close that out quickly. And open up this one here, for example. This is just an image. So if I go to signature design on this one, you can see literally all this is a photo. So I've uploaded that. I've chosen it as an image. I could change the image if I want to, or upload it. And I've web linked it. So it had a web link to an Eventbrite registration page to register for an event that we were running. So you can see there on that example of the signature example, it's just showing that applying. But again, if we had a rule there, we would normally stack that underneath another signature to give us that kind of banner underneath our regular signature. So as you see, I think it's a really, really powerful platform from that perspective in terms of what you can do. So I'm just going to jump out from sharing my screen again in a second. And bear with me. Oh, there we go. So we're pretty much on to Q&A actually now. So I've just seen we've had a question in from Jamie. Jamie's asked, do you need to be using 365 to also populate the boxes, or is there any other way? You don't have to be using Office 365. They are the Exclaimer Cloud product does have feeds in for G Suite, Gmail. So if you're using Gmail as a platform, you can do the similar thing from there. They also have what's called an on-premise platform. So for companies where they're using Microsoft Exchange, which was the old, essentially the precursor to 365, where you ran it in the office, it would run on there, and that's where the product originally came from. In fact, I came across Exclaimer probably 20 years ago when they used to run it in offices. If you were just using kind of POP email or SMTP, like email without Office 365, I don't think so. I will find out and I will let you know. But I think you do need to be on 365 because the way that it pulls the information in on Office 365, there is what's called Active Directory, which is this whole sort of gamut of information that's stored behind the scenes there. So Office 365 certainly does provide that information to make the signature building easier. And I think it's something that as you grow the number of users that you're working with, then Office 365 or G Suite or any other kind of cloud-enabled email platform actually does make that a lot easier for you anyway, because if you're using, again, typically, if you're using emails off the back of kind of a website address, then they typically don't scale tremendously well as you get more people or you want to do more. So it's possible. I'll find out and I will let you know, but I would probably say I don't think so at the moment. Let me just flick back and just back onto the slideshow very quickly. And so I don't think we've got any more questions that have come in. So if anybody does think of anything and they need any extra help, please do drop me a line. If you're watching this on the replay, you'll find that, again, you have got a question or chat box on the side that will send me through an email. Otherwise, please do send it to craig.atkins@one-fix.com. We are running what we call Webinar Wednesday. So every Wednesday we're running webinar content, always at 1 p.m. If you visit our website, one-fix.com, there's a link on there for events. You'll see the current webinar listed. You'll see a whole list of replay links for previous webinars that we've run. We've got content on all sorts of different things. So we're trying to build up a real library of useful content. Next week's webinar on the 27th will be all about how you can use a voice package on Microsoft Teams to give yourself a fully featured phone system in the cloud. So that's Microsoft Teams voice calling. That's going to be at 1 p.m. next Wednesday. If you visit our webinar page, we'll have the link up there before the end of the day today for the next webinar. So you'll be able to go on there and get registered. Alternatively, keep an eye out on social media, hashtag Webinar Wednesday. I quite often post on LinkedIn about this, so you'll find the next one there. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, pretty much bang on 30 minutes. So that was great timing. So thanks very much. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks.